The nation is paying tribute to the enduring legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. today, marking 38 years since the federal holiday was first observed in honor of the slain civil rights icon. Martin Luther King Jr. Day 2024 takes place on King's actual birthday, January 15th, as the holiday is celebrated on the third Monday of January each year. Dr. King was the driving force behind the civil rights movement, whose nonviolent efforts to achieve social and racial equality came to signify a transformative chapter in American history, culminating in the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And in the final hours, Trump is chasing a big win as Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis battle for second place. Donald Trump is hoping for a record-setting victory in Iowa today. Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis are seeking strong showings and momentum. The caucusing in Iowa begins at 7 p.m. Central Time. The long road to the Republican presidential nomination is beginning tonight. In Iowa, if you are there, you know that it is frigid, cold weather, and there's lots of speculation about whether people will come out and actually caucus given the severe weather conditions. Well, it's been more than 100 days since the Israel-Gaza war began, but families of hostages taken by Hamas in its October 7th attack on Israel, which killed about 1,200 people, they held a rally today in Tel Aviv marking 100 days of war. At least 23,968 people have been killed since the war began. Now, Israel will not dial down its military campaign this month, despite increasing pressure from the U.S. and other nations. A Manhattan jury will be asked a narrow question this week. How much money must former President Donald Trump pay to the writer E. Jean Carroll for defaming her after she accused him of raping her? Miss Carroll's chance encounter decades ago at a Bergdorf Goodman department store in New York, in which she said Trump shoved her against a dressing room wall, pulled down her tights, and forced himself on her, was already the focus of a trial last year. Now, a jury in that trial awarded Ms. Carroll just over $2 million for the assault and nearly $3 million for defamation over Trump's remarks in October 2022, calling E. Jean Carroll, calling her claim a complete con job. So in this trial, no questions about liability, no witnesses or evidence on liability. The only question that will be before the jury this week when this trial starts on Tuesday will be how much money should Donald Trump, and that is how much more money should he be forced to pay her for continuing to defame her. 3 migrants drowned at the U.S.-Mexico border this weekend. A woman and 2 children died after Texas National Guard members denied U.S. Border Patrol agents access to part of the Rio Grande. Now, this is a part of the latest dispute between federal and state officials over control of part of the border where thousands of migrants have arrived in recent months. And nearly 1 week after Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis was accused of hiring a romantic partner to lead a sprawling election interference case against Donald Trump. And then, the claim is that she hired him and that he financially benefited from payments from Fani Willis's office. Well, Fani Willis finally broke her silence on Sunday at a speech before the congregation of a historic Black church in Atlanta. In that speech, Fani Willis suggested that racism was at the heart of the allegations and the ongoing attacks that she has suffered since she indicted Donald Trump and others who have been accused of trying to subvert the election results of the 2020 presidential election. And in a study published just January 8th in the JAMA International Medicine Journal, researchers found that nearly 1 in 4, that's 1 in 4 hospital patients who died or were transferred to intensive care had experienced a diagnostic error. Nearly 18% of misdiagnosed patients were harmed or died. Now, according to the study, women and racial and ethnic minorities are 20 to 30% more likely than white men to experience a misdiagnosis. And the president of Lincoln University in Missouri was placed on paid leave Friday after students and alumni called for his ouster following a senior administrator's death by suicide. President Joe Biden also is getting a lot of pressure from his team about his re-election campaign. But Biden has raised more than $97 million in the fourth quarter of 2023, giving the incumbent president a campaign war chest of $117 million. Now, his Republican rivals have spent heavily in the GOP primary fight, causing them to have substantially less money going into this year's election than former President Donald Trump, as well as having a lot less money than Joe Biden. And an interesting poll is out too that says most likely Republican Iowa caucus goers, they've said they will vote for former President Donald Trump in the general election if he's the nominee. Now, that's regardless of the candidate that they're supporting on caucus night. However, supporters of former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, at least 43% of her supporters say that they will vote for Democratic President Joe Biden in the general election over Donald Trump. This is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. And I am broadcasting live today from Palm Springs, California, where I hosted and participated in the desert's only MLK Day celebration that was actually held on the official holiday and the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. We're going to be talking a lot more about MLK, his dream, his legacy, and his life in hour two. But in this hour, to help me break down today's news is Chris Scott. He is the co-founder of a PAC that is designed to help raise money for Democratic candidates. He's also a Democratic strategist. So I'm glad to have Chris with me on MLK Day as we talk about some of this other trending news. And as I said in hour two, we're going to be really talking about Dr. King's dream, particularly around the issue of reparations. Reparations is having a moment. There are efforts all over this country, including a new bill signed by New York's governor, Kathy Hochul, setting up a reparations commission in the state of New York. We know California finished its work around reparations last year. They've issued a 1,000-page report with over 100 recommendations about what the state of California can do to address the racial harm caused by redlining and other restrictive policies. So we're going to be talking to Demario Simmons. He is the attorney representing the families in Tulsa, Oklahoma, who are seeking reparations as a result of Black Wall Street being burned out in the early 1920s. Demario Simmons and I have been in this fight, trying to seek reparative justice for our clients. He in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I have been leading this fight in Palm Springs, California. And also Dr. Carlos Hill will join us in this hour. He is a professor at the University of Oklahoma who has studied, researched, and written extensively about the issue of reparations. Going to ask Demario and Dr. Hill, what Dr. King, MLK, Martin Luther King Jr., what would he say if he were alive today? What position would he take on reparations? A lot of folks have been opining about what Dr. King would say, but I'm going to ask these experts what they think Dr. King would say. But before I bring on Chris Scott and my other guests, here's what I'm thinking in real time. Today, as I said, I'm in Palm Springs, California, leading the only MLK Day celebration on the actual holiday. And I was struck this morning. This celebration was sponsored by my clients, the survivors and descendants of Section 14 Palm Springs, Brothers of the Desert, the Stonewall Democrats of the Desert, nonprofit that I run, Special Needs Network, and others decided that Palm Springs should not be the only city in the state of California, or one of the only cities that doesn't have an official recognition of MLK on his actual birthday. So we organized a march, a symbolic march, about a 1-mile march from a park to a United Methodist Church, where we hosted an interfaith service with a rabbi, with an AME pastor, with an Episcopalian pastor and his wife, who's also a reverend at the local Episcopalian church. We brought in a gospel singer. We brought a busload of folks from Los Angeles. And we held probably the first march of its kind in Palm Springs. And one of the things I got to say to the folks at the rally before we started the march, and the folks, the standing room only crowd at the United Methodist Church of Palm Springs, is that one of my favorite quotes of Dr. King as a civil rights attorney is, an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. And those words really resonated with me today at this multi-generational, multi-ethnic, multiracial gathering in Palm Springs. Now, as we've said, Dr. King would have been 95 years old today. And I can say with certainty that Dr. King would be looking at the state of our nation. He would be looking at this critical juncture that we're at. And he would recognize that whether you are personally touched by what happened to the survivors and descendants who had their homes burned out by the city of Palm Springs in the 1960s, or whether you were in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and had your properties burned that you might have owned on Black Wall Street, I think Dr. King would tell the country that where the rights of people, from the rights of the LGBT community and trans youth in particular, to the rights of women and birthing people, to the rights of Black women breaking barriers like Harvard's first president, Dr. Claudine Gay, he would tell the people that all of those rights are under attack. And that when you stand with survivors and descendants of Section 14 here in Palm Springs, or the survivors or descendants in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or those people who are standing up for reparations around this country, that when you stand with those folks, you are sending a message to those who would look to deny the very rights that have been hard fought by Black people, by gay people, by women in this country, rights fought on behalf of oppressed groups and individuals. I think Dr. King would tell us all that none of us have the luxury of sitting idly by. Dr. King would tell us that we all need to stand up, that we all need to speak out, and that we all need to lock arms together, because what Dr. King knew and talked about so eloquently was that collectively, the collective body, the collective demographics of people, Jewish people, Catholic people, people of faith, Black, white, brown, Asian, of all ages, all colors, all creeds, that collectively we are so much stronger. And so I am so honored and so proud to be a civil rights lawyer in this moment, and to be representing these clients in Palm Springs and what I think is the civil rights issue of this era. And I could not be happier to have been one of the sponsors and organizers of the only MLK Day celebration in Palm Springs, because I think we can all agree Dr. King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. deserves to be celebrated all over this country. When we come forward, today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
My ride smells just right, just right. Just right, just right.
Y'all gotta try that for Bree's car.
Just right, just right, just right. Yeah. La 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 la. 40 days of consistency. All over Bree's car clips right on your face. My car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face. And it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah. Breathe happy for Breeze. La 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 la.
Jim Gaffigan here with some more Straight Talk. Now you can get a Walmart Plus membership, plus not pay for it, because it's included with Straight Talk wireless plans. You get free delivery with Walmart Plus a Paramount Plus subscription included. Plus, you pay less for gas. That's a lot of pluses.
Only Straight Talk gives you unlimited 5G data and Walmart Plus included on select plans for free.
Straight Talk wireless, available at Walmart.
Requires service on Gold or Platinum Unlimited. One offer per eligible account. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. Additional terms apply.
pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
It's game day at Jim's house, and the spread is impressive.
Mike's already done some damage with the hot wings, and now he's dropping back and going deep for another slice of pizza.
I sure hope he brought the Pepto.
Mike knows the Pepto-Bismol provides fast 5-symptom relief from unexpected stomach upsets. He's no rookie.
The way he's throwing back those nachos, he's the GOAT.
Be ready for game day with Pepto-Bismol.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be a sign that your digestive system isn't working at its best? Taking Metamucil every day can help. Metamucil fiber powders help promote your daily digestive health using a plant-based fiber called psyllium. The gelling action of this special fiber traps and removes waste so you can feel lighter and more energetic. Metamucil, promoting digestive health for a better you. Learn more at metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Why choose Sleep Number Smart Bed? Because no two people sleep the same. Only the Sleep Number Smart Bed lets you each choose your individual firmness and comfort, your sleep number setting. The Climate 360 Smart Bed is so smart, it actively cools or warms up to 13 degrees on either side for your ideal sleep temperature. The Queen Sleep Number C2 Smart Bed is now only $9.90. Plus free home delivery when you add any base. Ends Monday. Prices higher in Alaska and Hawaii. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
All right, we are back and we are tracking today's breaking and trending news with my expert contributor, Chris Scott. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining me. This is a holiday. A lot of folks are off. I don't know if you're in a warm climate, you might be somewhere actually barbecuing or doing whatever people do on their off days. So I really appreciate you being here on MLK Day. And Happy New Year to you. I don't think I've seen you in the new year, but I greatly appreciate your brilliance. Big day tonight for Donald Trump. It is the first contest for the GOP presidential candidates, and he is expecting a big win in Iowa, but they are having some serious weather in Iowa. I know they've canceled a lot of flights. There is hella snow in Iowa and hella cold from what I'm hearing. So what do you think is going to happen tonight at 7 p.m. Central Time when they start caucusing?
Well, I think you're still going to see a pretty big win for Donald Trump. I think what's interesting is, do we see the weather affect turnout, and how does that affect the turnout for, the second or third tier candidate in the Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis? I think a lot of people are going to be paying attention to Iowa to see really more so how big is the margin of victory, but how does that second place person perform? I think what a lot of people have to remember is Donald Trump came second in Iowa. And so by no means, if you get a good performance out of a Haley, out of a DeSantis, does that help them pick up some momentum heading into a place like New Hampshire and South Carolina coming up?
Chris, you've been at this a long time. You've seen candidates come and go. You saw Chris Christie throw the towel in before the Iowa caucuses. He did not want to be embarrassed. Vivek Ramaswamy, who had been praising Trump throughout the candidacy, Trump has gone negative on Vivek Ramaswamy. He said he's not MAGA, says he's basically not good for the country, not good for the party. What do you make of Trump's kind of late attack on this candidate that I don't even think is going to he'll be a distant memory probably by June of this year?
Well, I think the interesting thing is, at some point, I think beyond even possibly could he be another option, folks were talking about him as, hey, maybe this could possibly be a VP candidate. I think Trump is very big on, look, I'm going to set the field how I want to set the field, and all of you could catch fire from me on any day of the week. None of you are actually safe, and I don't really respect you at that. And so I think it's just one of those things of, let me finish putting the nail in the coffin and get to where I need to focus on and put that bet to rest that he could even be my running mate.
I'm glad you said that. You're right, Chris. If you out there thinking that you are going to be Donald Trump's boy because you go on TV or because you praise him, as you said, you can catch fire at any point, any day, any minute. Donald Trump does not care. If you have, spent your whole campaign, which Vivek Ramaswamy did, praising him, you don't get to choose him. He chooses you. And what is it about people that don't get this by now? He has proven that time and time again. In fact, he probably thinks of Vivek Ramaswamy as being weak because he doesn't like people that kind of kiss up to him. He wants to go find that person that he thinks is kind of independently meets his tough man standard. What did Vivek get wrong about that? What made him think he was going to be the golden boy and be so special?
Well, I think it's still, we're in this age where so many of these candidates are posturing because they recognize, look, we do need the MAGA cult to come around and support us. That is the Republican Party at the end of the day right now. It is not your Reaganomics party. It is Trump's party, well and good. And so I think you saw so many candidates, they couldn't figure out how to exactly posture themselves. Maybe we praise him a lot and then we put ourselves juxtaposed to these other candidates. And it's, again, look, Donald Trump's like, there's only one me. There's ever only going to be one me. Chris Christie has found this out many times, no matter how much he carried my boots. And that's the lesson, the hard reality of it. But again, I think if you're going to see a running mate come out of this field, I think it is a Nikki Haley or a DeSantis, two people that have shown in the polls, at least, that there are quite a few Democrats that would possibly switch over or even independents. So I think if he's going to pick anybody from—
Wait a minute, Chris, that's an interesting that's an interesting prediction, I should say, that you just made. We know Ron DeSantis is really on Trump's list because Trump was incensed that he would even run against him because Trump said, I made you. You wouldn't even be governor of Florida, but for the fact that I came into that race and endorsed you. So we know Trump was like, how dare you? I can't see Trump picking a DeSantis because DeSantis has, that's two male egos that I could see clashing on any given day. And, Donald Trump is only going to put you on his ticket if you are a total sycophant like a Mike Pence. So what am I missing about Ron DeSantis? Then we'll get to Nikki Haley.
Well, I think it's still very unlikely, but it's not completely out the ordinary. Again, whatever you think is orderly about Donald Trump, he might go and do the exact opposite. And still in Ron DeSantis, even though he's flamed out in the presidential field, he's still sitting governor of a battleground state that Trump still very much wants to win. And so there could be some advantages. I think it's less likely, but you can't rule it out because he does respect, to a degree, people that at least can stand up to him.
Well, it's interesting because when Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis were debating last week on CNN and Trump was on Fox News, he did break some news by saying he had already decided who his running mate would be. Now, of course, he didn't reveal it during that program, but he wanted us to believe that he's already made that selection. I think he picks a woman. And I don't necessarily think it's going to be a Black woman or a woman of color. And I can't see Nikki Haley because Nikki Haley has said too many things about him now in her campaign for a second. And you cannot criticize Trump, but oh so little in order to still be in his good graces. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw someone like Elise Stefanik, representative from New York, or Nancy Mace, South Carolina Congresswoman. She jumped out there and, tried to be tough on Hunter Biden, wanted to get her little 15 minutes of fame by asking Hunter Biden if he had any balls around him showing up, to give his deposition to Congress. I think women like that he thinks are outspoken. He still's got this abortion issue, which we know in the general, he's going to probably flip completely, right? On Fox, he says, I'm proud that I was the president that put the Supreme Court justices on the court and that we overturned Roe v. Wade on my watch. I think in the general, he'll probably tell us a complete different story, another lie, and tell us that he is either for the states deciding what should happen or that it's up to individuals. What do you think about that? He's going to have to deal with those women voters, and one way to do it might be having a female on the ticket.
I think if he's smart, he picks a female that, you know, it's still pretty hard and close to his issues, but can move the needle. Maybe they have, like, you know, more of the 12, 16-week ban, something like that. You know, the in between that Republicans feel like they can digest. I think that would be the smart thing to do. But again, this is an egotistical, narcissistic maniac. We do not know what he's going to do. So as much as we can think he might pick the one that's closer to his issues, he might just go and surprise us and pick the one that might be able to pick off a few more Democratic votes.
Well, you're right about that. Narcissism, narcissistic, egomaniac, all of those things are true of Donald Trump. And you're right. He likes to keep the media guessing. He likes to keep them, you know, off kilter. So who knows? When we come forward, we're going to talk more about what's happening in Iowa, because those caucuses are going to get started in about 30 minutes, 7 o'clock Central Time. And also the war in Israel, Hamas. How will that play into this election? And Joe Biden has a lot of money. But what will that mean in terms of getting his message out? Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the right time. More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Vice President Kamala Harris is in South Carolina to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
An organizer who moved the minds, the hearts, and the feet of the American people.
On the State House steps, the vice president talked about freedom as a right of all Americans. Harris also slammed extreme Republicans for restricting the freedom to vote. The 25th annual King Day at the Dome event also featured NAACP leaders and other civil rights activists. Freezing weather has canceled one of the biggest Martin Luther King marches in the nation. San Antonio is facing freezing weather and, in some places, slick streets. The decision to cancel the parade was made out of safety concerns. It normally attracts well over 300,000 people annually. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Watch for minor traffic flow as a solo accident in Baldwin Park remains blocking the right lane of the 10 West before Puente Avenue. Over in Wilmington, minor traffic is in the area as a crash is currently blocking the 110 North off-ramp to Anaheim Street. Irwindale 605 has some delays ahead on the northbound side. First at Arrow Highway as a crash is currently on the right shoulder, and then a separate crash is on the right shoulder to the connector at the eastbound 210.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would be enormously proud of some achievements in sports that he never imagined. When the NFL kicked off the 2023 season, 14 teams started a black quarterback. When Dr. King was assassinated in 1968, NFL teams did not believe a black man could be their quarterback. All three of the NFL's black head coaches this season took their teams to the playoffs. One of them, Houston's DeMeco Ryans, won his first round game on Saturday. Two sisters from Compton, Venus and Serena Williams, changed the landscape of tennis and won a combined $136 million in prize money. Venus and Serena combined to win 30 Grand Slam events, 122 singles titles, and 4 gold medals. And 4 black athletes used their skills and marketability to become billionaires. Tiger Woods, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, and Magic Johnson. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out.
Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580. By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure at KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Got your beer. The leader when the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. The leader. The leader. The leader.
COVID-19 renter protections are ending for City of Los Angeles tenants. Know your rights and these 3 facts. February 1st is the deadline to pay rental arrears for rent owed from October 1st, 2021 to January 31st, 2023. Residential tenants cannot be evicted without a reason or just cause. You have 5 days to respond to an eviction notice from the court. Learn more at housing.lacity.org. That's housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home.
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
It's KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and in this hour, we are tracking today's breaking and trending news with my expert contributor, Chris Scott. And in hour 2, we are going to be talking about Dr. King, his life, his legacy, his dream, specifically around the issue of reparations. Reparations efforts are taking place all over this country, including an action that is akin to reparations that I'm leading right here in Palm Springs, California, which is where I am broadcasting live from today. Going to be talking to some experts, Dr. Carlos Hill from the University of Oklahoma and Demario Solomon Simmons. Demario is a fellow civil rights attorney. He's leading the charge for the victims of the Tulsa race riot. And Dr. Hill has written extensively about that riot. Going to talk to them about how they are feeling in this moment about Dr. King and what would he say about the efforts for African Americans, for Black folks around this country to gain reparations. So make sure you stick around for hour 2. All right, Chris, Joe Biden put up some big numbers in the fourth quarter of 2023, $97 million, giving the incumbent president a campaign war chest of $117 million. And the advantage of being the incumbent is you don't have to have a nasty primary where you have to spend a lot of money. Now, we know Donald Trump hasn't really done a lot to try to fight Nikki Haley, DeSantis, and others because he has always had such a commanding lead. But what are you making of this money? And then think about that in relationship to that new poll out that says those voters who are voting for Nikki Haley in the Iowa caucus today, in Iowa, that's taking place in less than 20 minutes, caucus goers will go to Iowa and start caucusing. They say 43% of them say if Nikki Haley is not on the ballot in the general election, they are going to vote for Joe Biden. That's both of those are some pretty significant developments, and I would think would have the Biden team pretty happy.
Yeah, I think two things here. I think I recently saw a poll where nationally still there's over 50% Americans that aren't happy with the fact that Donald Trump's going to be the nominee now. Equally, I think the current incumbent president is not too far behind in the dissatisfaction of him as well. When we're talking about the money, I think it means Biden also needs to start spending and investing and staffing out, especially in these battleground states. I think this is one of those elections where you don't wait to hire your campaign staff, particularly in the states that you know is going to be a fight. And I think that's looking at Michigan for him, where, you know, the Israel-Hamas war has really become an issue. And again, that's a state that Donald Trump won in 2016, even though Biden won it back in 2020. Looking at states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, states like that. And so it's a great fundraising haul, but I do think you're going to have to start seeing some of that money get spent on early staff hires to make sure he's doing the early engagement to get his coalition out the way that he needs to.
You know, that's a really good point, because there's also an article out that some of Biden's supporters are concerned that those key Biden campaigners, many of whom have now gone into the administration, Biden hasn't let them go. Like, he won't let them go back over to the other side. And just for those folks who may not know, that you can work on the campaign side, but then when you come over to the administration side, you can't do campaign work. So you can't be being paid by the U.S. government and be working on a campaign for any candidate, definitely not the candidate, in office. So there are some senior folks who were very critical to Biden's election win in 2020, who everybody expects to see on the campaign train, or on the campaign trail, I should say. And the word is that Biden has not released them, that they are still working in the White House in some capacity. Do you think that's going to be a problem? And are they there because Biden feels like in order to get his agenda done this year, he needs these folks? But obviously, a lot of folks are saying we need these folks over here on the campaign side.
Well, I think it's a little bit twofold. He is still the acting president. There is much policy stuff that he still needs to get done to show his strength on that side during the election year. But I think what's interesting is you see Biden, a lot of his hires, hiring a lot of Obama alumni staff that had maybe gone away from the campaign cycle. And he's like, actually, hey, need to call you guys back and to step up again. And so I don't think, there is a lack or a short of available campaign staff up there. I think they're being a little bit strategic on, if we're going to bring staff over, let's bring them over when it's absolutely necessary. But in the meantime, let's staff up and kick the tires on some of these veterans that didn't go into the admin, that are still out there and available and know what it's like to have, the hard-nosed fought race and win.
Well, now that you mentioned that about Obama, I've read some reports that Obama's ready to jump in whenever called upon, because he cares about our democracy, and he, like most of us, are concerned that this race is really about preserving our democracy. How important do you think it is to have Obama making a commitment to do whatever's necessary to be on the campaign trail, and then bringing those Obama staffers in? Do you think that's a good move, or should Biden be looking to bring in some other folks that are not Obama staffers?
No, I mean, I think you have to have a mix of both, but I think absolutely when you talk about how many times have we heard how is Biden going to repair the Obama coalition, who better than the folks that help do the work to build that coalition in the first place? The former president is one of the biggest things in the Democratic arsenal that any candidate can have. So I think between President Obama, between allowing Kamala Harris, his VP, to do what she has been doing and actually be on the campaign trail instead of stuck in Washington, and going to those veteran Democratic operatives that have already been battle tested, I think that's a good winning formula early on. And again, if you need to pull them out from the administration, you can do that, but let's see how much we can staff up beforehand and start laying the groundwork early.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that about our vice president, because she's in South Carolina today, giving a speech about MLK. You know, all of his surrogates are out somewhere in churches, at community groups, at political rallies. And the VP said we are going to see her more on the campaign trail. But to your point of spending that money, I was at a function myself last week, giving a speech and talking about the election. And one of the questions that was asked was like, hey, this sense of there's not a sense that the Democrats feel like there is a machine that's operating, that's implementing whatever the strategy is. Is it too early, or are the Dems making a misstep by not having, as you said, more hires, more boots on the grounds, particularly in critical states? Now, this was a speech in California. No need to be spending money on, California Democrats, but there is a need, as you said, to be out there in some of those other states.
Well, I think what's interesting is I think the administration has heard the criticism that is coming its way. I think they recently just appointed who's going to be both their battleground state director and their deputy battleground state director. I know the VP has definitely been staffing up her team. Well, I think what's interesting is you see a mix of not just Obama folks, but also her taking more progressive folks as well that have sometimes had not the greatest things to say, and which I think is smart. If you're going to win, you need to have people in the echo chamber from all sides of your coalition, even the sides that's been critical, if you're actually going to have a pulse on what the community wants. Again, I think, I would be worried if we get to March and this thing isn't really staffed up. I would start to worry at that point if you haven't really started to fill out your state teams at that point.
Good point. Good point. That gives us a measuring, something to measure the time by, to say, okay, this is January 15th. Don't panic. We got a lot of time. But by March, we need to feel and see that staff on the ground, particularly in states, the battleground states. When we come forward, got to talk about the war. 100-day anniversary. Hostages still have not been released. No signs from Israel that they're going to let up in terms of their military strategy. 20+ thousand Palestinians dead, and really no end in sight. How is all of this going to play into this year's presidential election? Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
When you're young, life is full of choices. Don't let opioids like highly addictive and deadly fentanyl take away your life with just one wrong pill. Addiction is a disease that can affect anyone at any age. There is a choice to get help for this disease. Find medically proven treatment options, including virtual, at choosemat.org.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20, a Pfizer vaccine.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stay Housed LA has the resources you need to know your rights and the legal support to back them up. The COVID-19 pandemic has cost people their jobs and livelihoods. This has left an estimated 1/3 of households not being able to make rent and facing losing their homes. This is a fear no one in our community should have to face. You have rights, though, and Stay Housed LA is here to help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and local community and legal service providers. Together, they provide tenants with the information and support needed to exercise their rights so they can remain safely in their homes. Find out more about your rights by participating in a virtual tenant workshop. Get the legal assistance you need. Find additional resources in Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA County for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. That's stayhousedla.org. Or call their hotline at 213-694-0040. We've got your black with a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
All right, Chris, it is the 100th day of the war that is going on in Gaza, in Palestine. Israel is committed to eliminating Hamas, the terrorist organization that attacked Israel on October 7th. They are committed to eliminating them from the face of the planet. We've seen 24,000 plus, I think, deaths of Palestinians. This unprecedented level of death and destruction in Gaza led South Africa to lodge allegations of genocide against Israel at the International Court of Justice. Now, Israel adamantly denies the accusation and has vowed to press ahead with its offensive, even if the court in The Hague issues an interim order for it to stop. In fact, Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, said, no one will stop us, not The Hague, not the axis of evil, and not anyone else. Now, he's referring to presumably Iran and its allied militias, but he might have been talking to Joe Biden when he said, no one will stop us. What do you make of this strident attitude that Benjamin Netanyahu has taken? It really puts Biden in a difficult position because he has his own issues in his country with the left side of the party. The progressives in the Dem party are very, very upset. Whenever Biden travels, we saw it at Mother Emanuel Church. Whenever our U.S. senators travel, there are protesters protesting, calling for a ceasefire. What is Biden to do when you have a prime minister saying no one, basically telling everyone to leave us alone because we're going to do this the way we want to do it, and the rest of the world be damned.
Well, I think you have a couple of parallels at play here. I think one, for a lot of the American public, they look at how much America has supplied to Israel's defense funds and a lot of the weapons that they have. And, you have that on one hand. I think short of calling for a ceasefire, I think it is very much you are the ally. You are seen as the leader in the world. You have to take a stronger stand to tell them they need to reel it back. Too many civilians are getting killed at this point. I think that's where a lot of the world is getting at this point. I think when you have what came out of, I believe, the Secretary of State, where, you just easily dismiss the cause from South Africa, those are the type of things where I think when you're looking at a lot of progressives, a lot of activists, they're like, you're a little bit tone deaf and not hearing it out. And it's not even just you're completely right, but you don't even hear the argument. I think that is where the administration is finding a lot of pushback because they look like they don't want to even have the conversation, which I feel like people want to have. And I think the other frustration for folks in America is, look, we're looking at how much we're spending on Ukraine, how much we're spending in Israel. We got a lot of problems at home. There are a lot of people that have not recovered from COVID yet and bounced back from that. We have issues at our own border with what Governor Abbott is doing at the Texas border right now and folks dying at the border. We have to also secure our home. And so I think that's only going to add to the frustrations. Now, Netanyahu, I'll say this last point. There's not much to say at him. He has been a lot more of a loose cannon. He's been a lot more, just bold and emboldened with all of his actions, and he doesn't really care about his popularity at this point.
No.
And so that is
He's
also
just trying to stay out of jail. I think, Chris, he knows that
Yeah.
if he's out of office, he faces some of the same fate that Donald Trump. It's kind of ironic that both of them have been charged with pretty serious crimes in their respective countries, because we know Netanyahu is much closer aligned to Donald Trump than President Barack Obama, Vice President then Joe Biden, and now President Joe Biden. They are not friendly at all. They're having to coexist. But it is kind of interesting that Netanyahu has taken this strident position. We don't hear much about efforts for peaceful solution, two-state solution. It's just, murder, murder, murder. And I'm not even sure, maybe you are, Chris. I know they've killed some senior level Hamas leader, but are they even killing Hamas?
I think that's hard to say at this point. I think when you look at that death toll every day, come on, how many people in Hamas organization can actually exist? It doesn't match the actual death toll that we're seeing. I mean, I look at this and this is becoming, what the US saw in Afghanistan and Iraq of it's just never ending. I mean, this is a conflict that has gone on for centuries. But it is really hard to say that they're actually deliberately targeting Hamas officials the way that they should be able to target Hamas officials with the type of arsenal that they have.
Yeah, we heard a couple of weeks ago about some high-level individual from Hamas, and he wasn't even in Gaza or Palestine when they killed him. But I'm not hearing or seeing, and I read these, I'm out here in these papers. If people say out here in the streets, I'm in these papers every day, all day long. And I'm not seeing the names or any evidence that this attack on Gaza is doing anything other than, as you said, causing more and more civilians to lose their lives. Now, let's be clear. It's not as if Donald Trump has some magic bullet. So anybody that thinks, the solution to this is to get rid of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris because Donald Trump is going to have some influence on Netanyahu or cause this war to stop, you're sadly mistaken. Donald Trump talks a big game, but he's not going to have any more influence. And if anything, probably under him, we are really risking World War III and causing even a greater conflict to happen. But it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. We know, like you said, Michigan and other states, this is a huge issue. Young voters, it's a huge issue. But it's a little disheartening to hear Netanyahu, with this tough man language that no one in the world can tell them to back down, as if no one as if no country or no other groups of countries can influence his decision at this point, and including his own people, because we know he's not that popular in his own country, and that there are many Jewish people in Israel who are adamantly opposed to the daily attacks that we're seeing against Palestinian people and want to see a two-state solution. Before we run out of time, Chris, I want to ask you about, so Donald Trump, he's having some success in the courts in terms of delaying some of these criminal trials. The U.S. Supreme Court's got to take up the issue of immunity. They have to take up the issue of whether he can be kicked off the ballot in states like Colorado. And all of this is having the intended purpose of delaying, perhaps, we don't know for certain, but perhaps going to delay some of these trials. But this civil trial with E. Jean Carroll, the woman that already won a $5 million civil judgment, it's opening. That case is moving forward. Jury's going to be picked on Tuesday. We know the judge is a no-nonsense judge that has already rebuffed many of the statements and, antics of Donald Trump. What might it mean to this election, if anything, if there is another $5 million, $10 million, $20 million verdict in favor of E. Jean Carroll? And we should remind everyone that the judge in this case determined that there was sufficient evidence to conclude that Donald Trump raped. We can use this, kind of politically correct word, sexually assaulted, but the judge was clear that the evidence and the jury's determination were all the equivalent of finding someone guilty or liable, because it wasn't a criminal trial, so I shouldn't use the word guilty, but liable in a civil context of rape. Is this going to have any impact?
Outside of Donald Trump going to jail for any of the things that he's being charged with at this point, I just don't see the impact. I think those that follow him are going to follow him through the depths of hell at this point. And they've already shown that. I think, every time he gets a new charge, it's just it's another excuse that they make of, oh, this is politically motivated. It's almost like they are making him almost into a saint-like figure, which is absolutely terrifying at this point. But I don't see it having a big impact on this election at all.
Well, to that point, there's a new article, and I'm sure you saw this, Chris, where even college-educated Republicans, those who were not with Donald Trump in 2016, those who were, just found him repugnant, are now starting to get on board, who are now saying for all of these, what seem like pretextual reasons, the economy, and by the way, the economy is doing better than it has done in years. Inflation is coming down. The unemployment rate is so low, it's just insane. Wages are up. Fast food workers and other, what would be considered entry-level workers are going to make more money this year in some states like California than they've ever made. But yet these college-educated Republicans are saying Donald Trump is our guy, which leads me to, the elephant in the room, which is, the issue of race. Can't ever get away from how motivated some voters are around race. We are out of time. Thank you so much, Chris, for spending MLK Day with us. Always a pleasure to be in a conversation with you. When we come forward, more on this historic birthday, 95th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.